What's up, everybody? It's me, it's PLT.
And I'm Jarvie. Welcome to Class Action, the classiest show on the interwebs.
You keep using that word. I do not think it means
It's true. It's true. You know, fake it till you make it. We're classy, and we're the classiest ever.
Well, we keep trying. So A for effort. We'll keep trying until we make it. So that's what we'll go with.
Absolutely.
How you doing today, Jarvie?
I'm doing pretty good. It's very early in the morning, so this is. I got up at 5:30 a.m. for our show, but I'm feeling pumped.
Pumped,
because this is one of our biggest episodes yet. But you got to say what we do on the show first.
I will. Well, first off, let me say that I'm sweating like it is hot here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll say that. Well, what do we do on the show? I found this new way to say it. I finally found this new way to say it. I found when I do this or that on Chilled Action, I finally said we can do option A or option B. So I can say now what we do is we prepare two options, option A versus option B. Now, those options could be anything. They could be movies. They could be franchises. They could be older versions of themselves versus younger versions of themselves. And in this case, it can be directors, which is the first time we're doing this. This is a first in Class Action after like 31 episodes. We're putting up two directors up against each other. And it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be.
No, sir. No, sir. And these aren't just like directors. These are two titans of Hollywood going against one another.
And we put them up against each other in 5 custom-made categories we have. And that's always the fun part that people don't get, because you have these snap judgments, which we'll get to later, which you have your own decision. But then when you put them up against each other in these categories, it could be certain categories. It's categories we came up with. There's no metric here. We have our own categories. So they could be totally different things. And you never know what's going to happen. And you never know what direction these is going to go. And usually the chat will yell at one of us, at least, if not both of us. But we welcome that. We like a little fire in our lives. So
I can see that you worked on your pitch. This sounded way better.
Did it? You like that?
This was great. I loved it.
One day I'll make it. The rainbow connection, whatever it is, something like that. Either way. But before we do that, before we get into our 5 custom-made categories, we should at least announce who the battle's up against. We have Christopher Nolan.
Yes, a good friend of mine.
Good friend of Richard Jarvis. You do have a little bit of a bias in this one, don't you? You're going to be able to
I do. Yeah. CN is my boy.
Okay.
I'm trying to stay unbiased. I'm not too familiar with DV, but
you'll get there. Hey, he's your next conquest. Denis Villeneuve is the option B this week, facing up against Christopher Nolan, and I will try to stay unbiased as well, because I got to say, Denis Villeneuve. I'll point out that he's my favorite current living director. Nolan is up there though too, so this is definitely
a Nolan's mine
battle.
So this is a great match.
So it's really you versus me, Villeneuve versus Nolan. And actually, funny enough, I realized that a couple of weeks ago we actually did this already to a degree, because we actually put up Interstellar against Arrival, which is Nolan versus Villeneuve.
I totally remembered that.
I did not. So
no.
But it is what it is.
But I think it's a great extension, and in the entire movie business is pretty much on hold, and Tenet seems to be the wayfarer, or sort of the wayfinder. So when Tenet comes out, I feel like the movie business will be back. But
that's a good point.
Feels like because everything seems to be circling around whenever Tenet's coming out, that they will start getting releases.
Right, and we'll see how it goes, I guess, at that point. Hopefully, I'm hoping, honestly, as much as I want to see in theaters, I hope it's still a little bit away until everything is safe, because that's just not a fun thing to even think about.
We can wait. Weird, because I've been listening to the news in Estonia. It feels like a bad dream. Like it feels like it's over, and it feels like a distant dream. And I listened to CNN yesterday. I'm like, you guys are hitting like record numbers. What is going on?
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's so crazy.
Yeah, people aren't putting on masks. We're actually sliding back a little bit. I think like the last couple of months of being masked in quarantine is almost done for naught, because it's going to go again. But you know what? I don't want to talk about that depressing shit. Let's talk about some good movies, some good directors, and let's take a break from that stuff. So, but you know what? Let's play our games. We also like to play some games that way before we get into the meat of the shows. We go into the first game, which is my favorite game of all time, and I'm just happy that Richard Archerby lets me play it and plays along. That's what it is. You know me. You know how much I love Ed Harris, my favorite actor of all time. We play What Would Ed Harris Play? Which picture I'm going to pick this week? I'll pick this one this week. What would Ed Harris play? Let's like to switch it up. We like to put Ed Harris into these films we're discussing, either replacing a character or we write a new character in for him, because Ed Harris is the kind of guy, he makes every movie better. He always elevates the film. It could be a crappy film, he makes it just a little bit better. It could be a great film, and he makes it even better.
Cannot argue with that.
In this case, it's kind of a little different, strange, because we're not doing movies, we're not doing franchises, we're just doing directors. So what we decided to do is pick one movie from each director's oeuvre, so to speak, and have like that.
Say that again.
That's a classy word, right? Oeuvre.
Say that again.
Oeuvre.
Yeah, I like the R. Oeuvre.
It's a classy word. We're a classy podcast, like you said. We'll take one
for a tie. I'd correct it.
One from each director, and we will put him in those roles. You think you're going to kick my ass this week, and you might be right.
I think so. Although I cheated a bit, but I think I'm going to.
Go ahead. All right. Well, let's see what you have for. Who do you have for Denis Villeneuve? Let's start with your Denis Villeneuve.
All right, Denis Villeneuve. Actually, this one is my more, specific choice. So I would have Ed Harris. Actually, you don't need to de-age him. I think the age doesn't come in too much, but I'd have him as Hugh Jackman in Prisoners. Like that intensity, that anger, that yelling. He would like him as an older dad. I think he could still play it easily, and the emotions, no problem whatsoever.
How did I not think of that? How did I not go there? I don't have no idea. I didn't go there. I'm gonna cede it to you already. I can't even beat that one. I will say what my picks were. I initially toyed with having him in Blade Runner 2049 just because I love the film so much. I kind of wanted to see him. I know it's kind of hard to replace an iconic role. But let's just say that the role wasn't as iconic. I like to see him in the Harrison Ford old man, old man kind of
Lone
Ranger kind of guy in the field, having the whiskey, having the that kind of the dog. It just seems like a great Ed Harris type role. But I still think yours might be better. I also toyed with him in Sicario, being Josh Brolin.
Another toyed around with that as well.
That's another one great. He's got that great action set. He can still pull off the action pretty well for an older guy, but he's got that intensity. He's got that somewhat amoral stance. At times, he can pull it off pretty well. He kind of toes that line always. But you know what? I let the chat say who wins the Denis Villeneuve part, if it's Jarvie or myself. But I'll just follow my sword. I think you win. But
I think I'll do one better. Like in Prisoners, Ed Harris as Hugh Jackman, and I'd have Michael Biehn as Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh my god, it's all over.
Have him have their moment again.
It's all over. You win. All right, I see it. I see that one. All right, let's move on to Christopher Nolan. Who do you have for Christopher Nolan?
You go first for Nolan now.
Okay. Nolan actually was more difficult for me because a lot of the times it was like you can go into the Batman franchise. You could throw in could he play Commissioner Gordon like Oldman could? He could. Could he do Michael Caine? Alfred, it's not British enough, so I think that was not a good way to go.
He could do it,
but he could do it. You throw in Interstellar, you could throw in Inception as my game, but I went with Dunkirk because it's a fallback from the military. I loved to see him play Kenneth Branagh's character, Commander Bolton. Because it's not as warm. He doesn't usually play that military role, the warmer military role, if that makes sense. Like where he's got the intensity, but he's got that love in his eyes and that kind of really passion for his men and his country. He sees a little bit of that in The Rock, but this is more of a warmth to him. But I actually, if you ever saw, if you watch the Harris I'll eventually get there. There's a movie that just came out called Resistance, where Ed Harris actually plays Patton.
Right. I think you showed me the trailer for that.
It is. He's actually literally he's in the movie for like 30 seconds. He's like in the beginning and the end until the rest of it. It's unfortunate, but he plays Patton. He plays that kind of role where he's very much a warm surrounding, like a very inspiring but very good guy. And I really like to see him in that Commander Bolton role. I think he can pull it off very well.
Now that's a good choice. Although I feel like Kenneth Branagh's character in Dunkirk wasn't supposed to be as warm. I think it's all Branagh, that brought the warmth.
Could be. Could very well be.
Because Branagh is like he's kind of a teddy bear, He is. He's got that, cute vibe about him. So yeah, he's a softie, exactly.
I get that.
But my Christopher Nolan pick, kind of a cheat because you mentioned all of them. I would have Ed Harris replace all of Michael Caine's roles, every single one of them, and he would nail them. I feel like he pretty much Michael Caine pretty much plays Alfred in all the movies. Like in Inception, he's Alfred. In Interstellar, he's Alfred. In The Prestige, he's like Alfred.
Definitely Alfred.
0.1.
Right? That's true. That's very true. I like the only reason I had against him is because he's not British, but just for the Alfred specific role. But you are right. I do the Michael Caine side for everything else he could do. He could do very, very well, I think. So, well, chat. What do you think on that one? You already decided. Charlie probably won for Villeneuve.
I think I might have gotten too cocky though. I feel like I'm gonna get slayed now. But
we'll have to find out. We'll find out later on. I guess. Hopefully, it'll be the chat that day. We'll see what happens. Okay, we're done with that, Harris. Now, thank you very much for indulging me as always, Richard. We'll move on to our next game. Our next game, which I know you love to talk about, you like to explore. Why don't you talk about the Public Defender?
Oh yes, the Public Defender. Now that's my favorite segment of the show.
Especially talking about it, especially describing it. You love describing
You're putting me on the spot, and you manage to always like catch me off guard. Anyways, the Public Defender. I'll first explain why we call it the Public Defender, because it's actually called the off-the-cuff list. But Public Defenders, usually in movies, they are overworked, underpaid, they are stressed out, and in movies, they might have to show up in court underprepared, and they have to make stuff up on the spot. And this is what we like to do to ourselves. Put ourselves on the spot, be unprepared, and have someone prepare a top 5 or a top 6 list for us. And we just have to, go with it on the spot.
And I will say Public Defenders usually do a good job at it. They to make the best out of a bad situation. We end up looking like jackasses. But it works. It works for the show.
We make our guests feel good.
Are we clowns for you? Are we clowns? That we are. Are we clowns? Are we here to anyway? Without that, let's bring on our special guest. This is the first time we've actually had a repeat guest on. She's actually she came on Class Action before, and she was willing to come on again. I'm actually very impressed by that because we usually I'm surprised that she wants to hang out with us again.
It's always great to have her on.
But it is great to have her on. Action Army General, my sister in Call to Action as well, Miss Kelsey Kirk.
Hello there.
What's going on, Kels?
Oh, not much. Just excited to hang out with you guys. It's always a pleasure.
Always. I got a little behind the scenes info here. This was kind of a last minute Hail Mary I threw at her. I kind of was running behind the scenes. We're filming a little bit earlier this week than we usually do, thanks to Jarvis' schedule.
Sorry.
So I was like, Kelsey, can you help me out? Can you Can you come up with something good? And we'll get you on screen. And she's like, absolutely. Because she's in a class up at any show she's on anyway. So, Kels, tell me about it. What did you come up with in this great debate?
Okay. I had a little less time to prepare this time, so I don't know how great this one is, but it's the first thing that popped in my brain when the subject came up. Both these directors make their movies have so much great acting roles. Everyone is so intense in them, but they're also visually awesome. So my question is rating your top 5, just in general, favorite visual moments. Could be because they are cool. It could be because they're beautiful. It could be because they're intense, like whatever reason, just not dialogue, just visually. What is your favorite?
Any movie or Nolan and Villeneuve?
Both. Okay, any of the movies.
Any movies.
I'll go first.
Any of their movies.
Their movies. So Nolan or Villeneuve.
Their movies.
Yes.
You want to go first still, Nolan? You want to go first?
I was going to go with The Last Jedi, the Kylo and Rey teaming up.
Nope, that's too easy. I'll go first then.
All right, you go.
Blade Runner 2049, the orange dune scenes when Ryan Gosling's character goes into that wasteland looking for Deckard. Just the amazing shots of color and the color scheme. It's so visually engaging. The whole movie, Blade Runner 2049, is like my fist pump in my visual scene. There's nothing in that movie that's not visually beautiful. That specific sequence made me really engaged in a way that I hadn't been engaged in a lot of movies in that same time frame. So I'll go with that one. First one off the cuff there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go right, into Nolan's camp here, and I wanted to say Inception at first, the rolling hallway, but I'm gonna go with. I think he borrowed from that scene and he made it into an even grander set piece. Well, it's not a set piece, but it's still visual effects. But Interstellar, the final Murphy station. Oh. When we see it, you're first you're looking out the window. It's like you're seeing weird things. It's like gravity's upside down. You don't know what you're seeing. Your mind is bent. I freaking love that moment.
Oh, that is a good one. That is a very good one. All right, I'll toss one back. I'll say in the Villeneuve verse there, so to speak. I'm going to go with Arrival. The whole sequence where they start talking to the aliens, and the first time they really put the aliens go up against the wall, and you get the shot. It's a shot of them, of Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner, like from afar, and you're seeing the aliens trying to communicate. It's just like striking how the black and white coloring of it, and the smoke, the signals, like the jellyfish kind of way they made the letters and everything else. It's very fluid, but it was very kind of cool. I like that one a lot.
So I'm gonna go jump back right into Nolan's camp.
I'm shocked. Guys, I should interject. He likes Denis Villeneuve, and I do like Christopher Nolan. Just so he knows,
he's not your favorite. It happens.
And I'm gonna go right back into Interstellar because I think it's his most visual movie, and it's the scene when they get to the ice planet, for lack of a better word, where they find Matt Damon. No spoiler. Shit. Sorry.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon. They actually have like layers of surface, which again is like it's so hard to grasp. That's what I love. Like Nolan, he gives you visuals, but he also he really like scratches your brain with his ideas and his visuals.
I agree with that. I feel like I'm giving a short change to some of the earlier Nolan works a little bit, and but a couple of them I haven't seen in a long time, so maybe visually I don't have quite the memory about them to really put forth here. But I'm actually going to dip into Nolanverse a little bit too, and go into that same movie, Interstellar. The third act has always been the most controversial, so to speak, if you go into it. But I can't knock the visualization of the eighth dimension.
Yes,
bit.
Thank
We're
you.
like, Matt, I'm gonna go into that, and then the books, and all the books are there, and all different levels of books. You can't really
one
tell.
Of mine for sure.
Right?
They built that. Do you know that they built that?
Yes, I did know that. That was a good. Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
It is so beautiful because it's a way they're trying to explain something that's so hard to visualize yourself, but it makes it work. So that right there is one of my tops of all time.
That is a great one. All right, so I'm gonna keep myself in the Nolanverse. And
you son of a bitch! I gave you a Nolan.
I know you did, but this is off the cuff.
I get it.
You know, that's what happens.
I get it.
I'm gonna go with this goes more into maybe the stunts department, but still the visuals and the way it was shot is the truck flip. The truck flip in The Dark Knight is still considered to be one of the greatest, stunt performed scenes ever, and my God, it's shot perfectly. It really is. It's such a great scene.
All right, that was actually a very good question, Kelsey. I don't know why you doubted yourself because you always bring the heat.
You actually made us feel kind of good with this one. Like this was we didn't come off like total idiots this time. I feel like
that's a very.
Always trying to make you look good, guys.
Out of 31 episodes, this only happened like 2 or 3 times. So we're. Do you have any you want to throw out there, Kels?
The main one I wanted to bring up was definitely the scene with the books and everything like that. I just think that's such a cool interpretation of what time is. Like it's just. Oh, it was fantastic. And then my moment was Arrival, similar to yours. It's a little different scene though, but when she walks up, like just puts her hand up and things like that, just like the look, it just looks so cool with them and everything. So those were mine too. I brought.
That is very cool. Very cool.
The entire looking of the pod, like whenever they do the aerial shots of the pod, it's like it looks so cerebral and scary, but interesting.
Yes, very much so. All right. Well, again, thank you so much, Kels.
Thank you. That was an awesome list.
Back into the backstage area. You should hang out back there. Maybe we'll see you later on. Maybe not. We'll find out. I'll bring her back up and say goodbye. So, all right. There we go. That was a good one. It wasn't that bad. I
feel good about myself.
Okay. Now let's change it up. Now, first off, now we're getting to our 5 categories. We have one thing we got to do first. Snap judgment. And I feel like we've already kind of said this because we already know who we favor a little bit. Go ahead. What's your snap judgment?
Denis Villeneuve.
My snap judgment is Chris Nolan.
No way. Are you doing this on purpose? Because I did it on purpose like the previous 2 times.
I would never do such a thing. I completely.
Of course you wouldn't.
I do everything for the show. I'm the honest about it, and that's why it's not that. I do think that. I'll talk about it after, but maybe. Yeah, but otherwise, I don't want to talk about it yet because I want to influence. All right.
So you're going Nolan. I'm going DV.
Let's go. All right. Very interesting that we did that. All right. Let's talk about our 5 custom-made categories real quick. We got the first one we had. Again, this is where it all comes down to, guys. This is our categories that we made So I get it. If you ever have so many categories you have for your own, you can always pitch us categories for movies and directors and stuff. Maybe we'll have different ones next time. But we like these categories, I think, so far.
Yeah, this just before when you get into it, these when we make the categories up, we usually like to accentuate, what makes both movies great. So it's usually the common denominator. Mm-hmm. It's just we try to think of the best parts of those movies, and these categories are based on that.
Okay. So we have first the best of the best. Now, this one's actually very subjective, obviously. We decided to take each of our favorite, like my favorite Christopher Nolan film, and put up against my favorite Denis Villeneuve film, and Jarvis going to do the same, and we're going to decide which one wins in that case against just our personal effects. Because therefore, finding out who, if we had to rank both Villeneuve and Nolan together, this is the one to us is the top of the list. And we'll find out how that works for us. Our second, more diverse storyteller. Definitely film is a medium where you can go in many different directions. How well do these directors take those avenues, maybe repeat those avenues, and we'll have to see where they're going to go maybe in the future and see how that's going to go. Which one is a little bit more diverse, therefore possibly bringing in more different viewpoints on things. We'll have to see on that. 3, more anticipated future is what I initially called it. I had this idea of doing a two-way thing, but Jeremy and I decided they both have 2 of the most anticipated films coming up to be released in Tenet and Dune. So we'll put them against each other. Which one are we more wanting to see? Which one is going to think you're going to have a bigger impact? Maybe not on the world, because I think Tenet has that already kind of sewed up as far as the whole COVID thing. But as far as film-wise, which one we would say more of? Number 4, a good director brings out some great acting performances. That's part of the job. Who directs actors better in a way, who gets that performance that you really think of and can hang your hat on. Is it Nolan with? Well, we'll get into it, I guess, later on. But each one has their own heavyweights, so to speak. Finally, 5, more consistency. Who has like the least? I mean, every director usually has a bomb or two, or the one that's not quite as good as another film. Nobody had. It's hard to have high quality films every time out, like 5-star, 4-star, 5-star films. So, who is more consistent at delivering high level performances and or high level film rather? Just a lot of arguments being made on both sides. I'm not sure on almost any of these. I only have one that I know for sure on.
Neither of them have like a bomb in their name. So.
That's true. None of them are. I don't think either of them have really made a bad per se film. No. So, but we'll talk about it. So, let's start off with the first category: your best of the best, or basically more. I shouldn't say best; it's really best of favorites because that's subjective. But why don't you give me your favorite Denis Villeneuve, your favorite Christopher Nolan, and tell me which one you like better, and go with it.
Mines are exactly the same as yours, and I know this because I saw your doubt for just a brief second. But this is the only one that I remembered. Because, fair warning, neither of us know what the other one picked. So we haven't talked to each other before. So we pretty much have no idea. But my 2 favorites, I'm guessing they're the same if you change them, but it's Interstellar and Blade Runner 2049. Mm-hmm. This is interesting because if I had to snap judgment on this one, I would say because Interstellar is way more higher ranked for me than Blade Runner 2049. I think Interstellar is my top 5 greatest movies of all time. Blade Runner is probably in my 20s, my top 20.
Okay.
I've seen Interstellar now for quite a number of times, and I feel like it's a movie that I have to pace myself with. If I watch it too much, if I give it too much, screenings, I feel like it starts to weigh on me. I have to, it's a movie that I have to save to, appreciate it and not grow too accustomed to it. But Blade Runner 2049 is doing something weird. I feel like I want to see it again after immediately after I watch it. I'm like, okay, I want to see Blade Runner again. It's weird how that movie is creeping up on me with every rewatch. And I can't believe that I'm doing this, but I'm giving this one to Denis Villeneuve for Blade Runner 2049.
Wow.
I know.
I am shook right now. This is not going the way I thought it was going to go. And it's still in the first question. Damn. It's funny. I will say there it is. I have this outline. I put it by Google Docs, and I usually put an outline of the show. And I usually make a copy for myself and put a copy of it, and I write my notes on it. I just forgot to make a copy this week, so that's why Jordan got to see the first one. Anyway, so they actually wrote on the thing, "You should delete your answers from here." Son of a bitch, teasing out like that.
I love leaving you notes there.
Yeah, like the other one, he goes, "It doesn't matter what the intro says, you're going to steal my lines anyway."
And it's still there. It's like every episode is still there. And then you wrote, "You son of a bitch."
You son of a bitch. All right, well, let me get back into the meat. Best of the favorites for mine. Like you said, it is the same two films. Interstellar is my favorite Christopher Nolan film. Blade Runner 2049 is my favorite Denis Villeneuve film. Blade Runner 2049 is my favorite film of the decade. Hands down, favorite film of the decade right there. Interstellar might be number 2, if not like in the top 5. So it is definitely an interesting choice for me. But I have to say, without a shadow of a doubt for me, it's Blade Runner 2049. I love Interstellar so much. So much. And I've watched it. I've probably watched Interstellar more, to be honest with you, given things I've had to do, things with the Action Army stuff and everything else as well. But Blade Runner 2049 to me goes beyond even Interstellar's greatness because of not only the visuals, not only bringing back a diverse character, an iconic character, it's an iconic sequel. It makes really you take a movie that's beloved, one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time, and not only does it like match it, to me, it even surpassed it.
It is better.
And it has like it makes but it also takes the what's built and doesn't like trash it. It actually extends upon it. Like the city looks the same, just a little bit older, as if it was really just a little bit older. Like it's believable as far as the world goes. If you got into the Blade Runner world, this one is so much right in line with everything. And also Ryan Gosling gives such a great underrated performance in this film. I've never heard, you don't hear people talk about it much because it's such a stoic, straight man's performance that like when the motion happens, you're like, wow.
That's what he's best at. He's like, if Cruise has this sort of, I don't know, what's its aggressive intensity, aggressive sincerity.
Right.
He has this, bottled up emotionality or something that's, he does it in Drive as well. He acts with his eyes and his body, even though he's, I feel like there's so much built behind these eyes that we don't get to see, but you can tell it's there. It's the eyes. They do so much.
I get it. I agree. So, well, that's it for me. It's Blade Runner 2049. Now, this was probably my easiest one. And again, I hate saying it was easy because I love Interstellar so much, and I always put it back.
Me too, dude. So. I'm still surprised that I went that way, but I have to be honest. I don't know. This brutal honesty. Sorry, Nolan. Sorry, Chris. Sorry for doing this too.
All right. Second there, most diverse storyteller. Nolan versus Villeneuve here. This is a very difficult swing to look at.
It was for you? This was actually easy for me.
Oh, it was? Okay. If it's easy for you, then why don't you go ahead and go first?
I'm sorry, I just got in there. But this like, because the other categories, they're really tough. This one, and I'm giving this to Denis easily because he's like, Nolan has these, larger than life concepts about his movies. Like almost all of his movies are centered around time. Most of them are science fiction-y. Denis Villeneuve has these science fiction movies, but he has these really hard-hitting dramas. So I feel like he can deliver. Like, I'm just waiting for him to come up with a comedy or something. I feel like he has that range. I could never see, Nolan do a comedy or something like that. But Denis Villeneuve, I could totally see him do like a weird, quirky comedy.
Okay. That's an interesting choice. I do happen to agree. I think that's where I ended up. I wanted to sink in the Nolan for a minute. I said like he's got different things. He does have the time factors, which he does tend to repeat on that. Inception, even Tenet seems to be treading that same line. Memento is the one that comes back. It's got a unique quality, but there is some levels of time there. Then you forget it. But he does also go into the Batman world. He gets to go to the comic book world in a way.
That's true.
Which is a little bit different for Denis. Haven't done it yet, although Denis has obviously gone into other sci-fi properties and been able to create visions. He already created, like we just said, Blade Runner 2049, and we get to see what he's going to do with Dune, which is a beloved classic novel and not quite as beloved film, but interesting film either way. I haven't seen it in a while. I'd like to actually take a look and see and give you a solid rating on that. But end of the day, I think I have to agree in terms of you've never seen Denis, Christopher Nolan do something like Prisoners, which is like a more intense personal thing at that.
Prestige is probably the closest thing to it.
Yep.
But still, it's very larger than life.
Maybe
Insomnia. It has a very larger than life feeling to it, Yeah.
Maybe Insomnia does also have is in that realm, but I feel
haven't
like
seen that actually.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Okay, I haven't seen it since it came out, to be honest with you, but it was a long time. But I felt like, although I did, I was just going to bring it back. I did consider putting Ed Harris in the Al Pacino role there as well, just to throw it out there. But he is good. It's good, but it's not as good as a Prisoner. I don't think Christopher Nolan could attempt it, but I don't think he could hit the home run with it like Denis Villeneuve did it so far. That's what it seems like to me. But I think Chris does have some good chances as well. But I think I have to end it by saying I think I agree that I could see Denis Villeneuve, for example, doing a raucous out there comedy, and I could never see Christopher Nolan tackle something like that. Denis Villeneuve has more options to him, I think, in his younger career. So,
and you can tell if someone did like a blind test. You can never do that, but short film versus short film, you don't know who made it. You can pretty much tell Nolan movie. But if it's, a Denis Villeneuve movie, it's like, wow, that's a really great movie, but you can't maybe find his signature as easy. So I'd say Nolan has more, it's like his type of movie. It's a Nolan movie.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go with that. I'll move on to the more anticipated future. Basically the Dune versus Tenet.
Yeah, this is
you have some big biases. You have some big biases,
I'm very biased. And but bias is part of humanity.
You're right.
But okay, so before I had the chance to be an extra on Tenet, when I heard about Dune and I heard about Tenet, I'll be honest, I was more excited about Dune from the get-go. And the news that's been coming out, like people saying, I know it's like people love to say it, it's the new Star Wars, stuff like that, but there's been so much hype, and I already saw that there's a TV pilot that's being produced on top of the Dune movie. I feel like the cast is freaking amazing. The book is absolutely out of this world, and I'm sure that Denis Villeneuve will. I can guarantee that it's going to be a 5 out of 5 movie already.
Wow! But
Tenet, and having been there, having seen what Nolan is able to do in person, I know I'm biased, but I don't care.
It's okay.
This one's going to Nolan because of that. And there's like, I want to talk about the scenes so much. When it comes out, I'll let you know more.
We're definitely going to do an episode involving Tenet. It's obviously going to happen.
Yeah. And Tenet has a trailer out. Dune doesn't have a trailer yet, which is also unfair.
True.
But I feel like he's going to build on what he did in Inception. I feel like this is going to surpass Inception.
Wow, that's a ballsy statement.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this on just for shits and giggles. If you had to take yourself out of it, having been there, would you go Dune over Tenet then?
If I knew for sure that like all the scenes that I was in they'd cut, I would probably still go Tenet.
No, I mean, like, let's say you weren't involved at all. Like, you try to take yourself out of being involved. You weren't there. You didn't see anything. It's just what you've seen of Tenet, like in the news and anything else.
It'd be closer,
but
I would probably, it's very close. But as I said, like I'm shamelessly letting bias take this category for me.
It's perfectly fine. I get it. I understand. I probably would do the same thing, to be honest with you. But taking it from you, to me, this is probably an easier category as well. I honestly, before everything went down, I would say Tenet was one of my most anticipated films of the year. But Dune is everything that I want out of a film. It's a sci-fi movie, which I love. Great franchise of that. And you mentioned the cast is freaking phenomenal. And following Blade Runner 2049, which he did so well and was my favorite film of the decade, you're following it up with something that's similarly like in that same ballpark. It's a beloved franchise. It's a beloved cast. It's going to be visually stimulating. It just seems like it's all stuff that I saw in Blade Runner 2049, and that's a good thing for me because like it seems like if he does what he did on Blade Runner 2049, then it's going to be a home run for me. Whereas Tenet, I wonder. Like I don't.
You wonder if Nolan has hit his peak, right?
I do a little bit. A little bit on that in a good way. Like I feel like it's just And it's kind of funny I say this because I just like what I said about Denis makes it sound like it's a retread in a way, but it's not a retread. It's more of a branching out. Tenet almost seems like it could be a little bit of a retread of stuff he's done before. Maybe. I don't know that for sure. I can't tell. I don't know much about the film. I am piqued about John David Washington. I love John David Washington. I love Robert Pattinson, what he looks like he's doing. So I do love Tenet. I want to see Tenet. But I gotta give the edge to if I had to choose right now, I have Dune in front of me, I have Tenet in front of me, which I can only go in one theater. I'd go to Dune first, and then I'd sneak out and tell you to see Tenet right after, probably. But I think I'd have to go. I have to go Dune.
That's a fair choice. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go.
I almost wanted to say, Nolan does a lot of practical effects, and in Tenet, especially like the jet plane that they crash, like everything, the explosions, but. Denis Villeneuve in Blade Runner 2049, what people don't realize is they actually built the cities. They have built the what do you call the miniature cities? I can't remember the word.
Those miniatures.
Yeah, a lot of his stuff is actually practical as well.
Yep,
which translates what we see on screen.
So
great.
So well. All right. Well, there goes that. Let's move on to Best Actor performances. Christopher Nolan, you got people, I'll just throw a few out there. You got, Heath Ledger's obviously the big Oscar winner. He's a good role. Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar was pretty well received. Christopher Bale. Why did I say Christopher Bale? Christian Bale is in a bunch of all the Batmans and The Prestige.
Yep.
You got Hugh Jackman in The Prestige as well. You got Leo in Inception. A lot of good, solid, powerful performances. And then Denis Villeneuve. You got Ryan Gosling's performance we mentioned. You got Amy Adams did a stellar job in Arrival. Emily Blunt in Sicario. And Josh Brolin in Sicario. You got Hugh Jackman in Prisoners. This is kind of a tough battle to face. They both have brought the best out of some very good actors. That's what they did best. They took the right actors and then they just gave them a good performance or gave them a good role. And I don't know if they just let them go or they molded it all. It's hard to tell what they had to do with it. We can't know because I wasn't there. Well, you can tell me about John David Washington and Robert Pattinson, maybe, but
I didn't see a lot of Robert Pattinson, but there were a lot of scenes with Washington.
Yeah, did you see Nolan directing him, or was it
Oh yeah, they were like butting up a lot, and yeah, this is. But you don't when you're on set, you don't get to see like the actor's performance. You just get to see all the spectacle.
Right.
So that was, but they were talking a lot, like one-on-one a lot.
Interesting.
But yeah, this is so. What are you ruling this one?
Yeah, I didn't say that, did I? I guess I was trying to see if I could get away with it without. I think I got to go Christopher Nolan. I'm going to go Christopher Nolan.
Wow.
I am. Heath Ledger alone is such a perfect performance in that role, and it was all partially based on Christopher Nolan's experience with him. I also am one who loves Matthew McConaughey's performance as in Interstellar. I think it's an underrated performance. I think it does a lot, even though it's a meme now and everything else. It's the waves of emotion, but yet the gunslinging cowboy kind of thing attitude he has. It's a very, very powerful scene for me. I love Gosling in Blade Runner. Love him. Love Harrison Ford. And I love Jackman in Prisoners. I just wonder how much is that Denis Villeneuve and how much is that just Jackman being Jackman, because that's just a very Jackman kind of role in a way.
Think of Gyllenhaal in Prisoners and Enemy.
Gyllenhaal and Prisoners and Enemy. That is a good point. Like you could sway me right now. You could sway me. My initial thought is going to go Nolan, but I could be swayed. Let me hear it.
So I'm going with this one. Feels like it's a clear-cut decision for Denis Villeneuve because I feel like. Although maybe it's even a bit unfair because I feel like his movies are, they're geared towards performances. They really are. And even if you think of Blade Runner 2049, sure, it's a highly visual movie, but think of what Jared Leto did there, like Ryan Gosling, Anna Mackenzie, the girl who. Can't remember
which the bad guy one or the
not Ana de Armas.
Ana de Armas.
Amazing job.
Ana de Armas were good.
I think it's Mackenzie something. She was in the Terminator movie.
Yes. I know what you're talking about. I can't. I'll get it. Keep going. I'll get it.
So all these small performances, and I'm gonna say a really underrated performance. Actually, people have been slamming the performance, but Jared Leto has
Mackenzie Davis.
Mackenzie Davis. That's right. I figured that was her last name for some reason.
Jared Leto is great in that. He is great in that.
So enjoy what he's doing. So monotonous, so weird, but still
far better than his Joker performance. Sorry, Kels. I know you're about that. I know. Sorry,
I wouldn't go there.
I know you liked it. I know you like.
I do love Leto's Joker. I don't know. I'm like, me and Kelsey are probably the only people in the world who love that. What the fuck, Paul?
But yeah, I got you.
What the heck?
Trying to throw out there for that.
Perfect.
No, but you are right. Jared does do a good job in that, and also Ana de Armas. I forgot about
sorry.
I forgot about Ana de Armas.
That's
right. Ana de Armas is phenomenal in that.
Wow. But his movies, that's what I'm saying. His movies are geared towards these performances. Nolan's movies are. I don't want to say he doesn't create great roles for his movies, but it feels like his movies are, larger than the performances. Sort of the concept always overtakes the performance in some ways, except for The Dark Knight. Okay, Heath Ledger, what he did, that's going to be remembered as the greatest performance in Hollywood.
You know what I want to throw out there now? You're right. You're right about Heath Ledger's performance. I want to throw out there now. Just I'm thinking about it. Denis Villeneuve also has much better representation with female characters and female performances. I feel like Christopher Nolan's female performances aren't as up there comparatively. I mean, you got Jessica Chastain is good in Interstellar, and Hathaway is good in Interstellar, but they're usually overshadowed by the male performances. Good. They're good.
Ellen Page.
They're good, but I feel like they're overshadowed. I feel like, whereas the female performances in like Emily Blunt and Sicario. Like I said, Ana de Armas, even though I forgot Ana de Armas in Blade Runner, and also Robin Wright in Blade Runner, one of my favorite performances. And I almost forgot her. She had a great performance in that as well.
Yep.
Arrival. Amy Adams, The Rival.
Yeah.
I think I'm changing my mind. I'm partially based on the female presence alone. I think that Denis Villeneuve has more solid characters both ways, I think. And they're just memorable. Heath Ledger is great, but we're going to go with the other Joker. Not really. But Denis Villeneuve, I'm going to go with that one as well. I'm changing my vote. So we're both going to go Denis Villeneuve. Okay. Wow. I'm a little surprised by that. You got to change my mind a little bit. Okay. All right. So let's finally go with the fifth one there, their fifth category. Consistency. Villeneuve versus Nolan. My one problem with this category. I have one problem. I know you want me to lead in this one. My one problem with the category is Nolan has definitely had far more time. And directors who have more time have more chances to slip. And the directors, generally speaking, are at their best when they're their youngest and hungriest. That's when they usually do their best work. You think of Steven Spielberg, who I love, one of my favorite directors of all time. His earlier work is definitely well more received than some of his later work recently, for example, as much as I love Ready Player One and all that. But so if I have to pick consistency in that level, that makes it a little bit already geared toward Villeneuve, because he's only had a few, especially released in America at this point, sort of American releases. He has a lot more foreign films that I haven't, like the French films, like any films I haven't seen as much as. I couldn't say. I did see Incendies, which is very good. I did see 23rd, I forget the name of it now exactly. One of his earlier pictures he did, August 32nd on Earth. I saw Maelstrom. I get a chance to see. Polytechnique is the other one I saw, which is a interesting.
Yeah, I saw it in his filmography. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting film about the Montreal Massacre, which is definitely I didn't think that was going to be something he would cover. I had no idea when I watched the Villeneuve. But I think when I look through the filmography of Denis Villeneuve, and I haven't gone back another watch through of all the Nolan stuff, I feel like Denis Villeneuve is a little more solid, a little bit more. Nolan, whereas I made the argument before about Nolan's younger career being, about a director's younger career being better, Nolan kind of had following, which wasn't that spectacular from what I remember. Memento was good. Insomnia was considered a little bit of a step back, a little bit here and there. And despite everybody else, I'm going to lose the crowd with this one probably. I was not the hugest fan of Dunkirk. I like a lot of Dunkirk, but as far as like, it's not what I'm going to go revisit. there's a lot. I like it for the ambition, maybe more for than the results. If that makes sense to you,
it makes perfect sense. I think a lot of people agree with you, but for me, the movie has changed a bit. Like I'm liking it more and more now.
Okay,
it's growing on me with that movie. Yeah.
So it might be unfair to give Denis, like I said, he has less shots at doing something awful, but
I think they have around the same amounts of movies, though.
It could be.
I think so, because they don't have like huge filmographies so far, which I kind of like about them, because it's always special when they come out with a movie. But I think they're around the same mark. So Nolan has 15 credits altogether. There's probably -3 that are shorts.
Right.
So that would be 12 movies for Nolan, including Quay is a documentary short, so around the 11.
Yeah, Tenet. You know what? I'm totally sick of my foot in my mouth there. Denis Villeneuve he has about 10.
All right.
And they started, actually, they both started in 1998. Wow, this is actually a lot more closer. For some reason, I had the feeling that Denis Villeneuve came out. I guess it's because he really didn't make an appearance to me until Prisoners. 2013 was the first time he made a splash for me. Because a lot of it was stuff done in French Canadian films as well. So that's but you got to count them, I guess, and they count. So you're absolutely right there. So I guess that's a little bit of bias I'll have to work against. But even with that in mind, let's look at the last. Denis Villeneuve's last films: Prisoners, Enemy, Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049. All of them to me are like holy shit films.
That's phenomenal. It really is crazy. It feels like, for me, it feels like Denis is he's on the upward ladder a bit more than Nolan. I feel like Nolan is already up there.
Yes.
Like he's like, okay, also kind of eating my own words, because I said Tenet would like surpass everything he's ever done, but it feels like, if you think about the directors, that Denis still has way more potential, which I don't want to knock against Nolan.
Right.
He's still my number one, even though I'm giving this all to Denis for some reason.
But he might not have peaked yet. But Denis might not have peaked.
It feels like Denis hasn't peaked.
Yeah, I get that.
Crazy.
I kind of get that. So you're giving it to Denis also, then?
I think I'm giving it to Denis. What is happening?
Do you realize, with that final statement, this is a slaughter? This is an absolute slaughter. This is not a close match at all, like I thought it was going to be. And Jarvie, you won. Denis Villeneuve won 9-1. 9-1. Denis Villeneuve.
You know that I almost gave it to Dune. Like, my decision was like by a hair. Would have been 10-0.
Would have been 10 a clean sweep for Denis Villeneuve if that was the case, without your biases.
This episode will never be released. No one will see this. I will deny of its existence.
Kelsey, what do you have to think? What do you think about this? Are we off our rockers here?
I'm very surprised it was not as very close at all. I thought it was gonna be pretty close. But yeah, I don't disagree with anything that was said either. So yeah, I guess it may happen. What happened happened.
Well, if Kelsey agrees, we can't be too far off. Hopefully, the chat isn't slaughtering us as well. And you know what? It makes sense to me. Like I said, this is why Denis is my favorite current living director.
See, and I like Nolan more than, but then looking at the brass tacks of it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's what's bothering me.
That's like the category too. That's what the category too. The time will tell. Tenet, maybe after Tenet and Dune come out, we'll have to revisit the conversation.
We're gonna do Tenet versus Dune.
Oh, we should. That's exactly what we should do. We'll wait till both come out. We'll do Tenet versus Dune. That's what we'll do. It'll be the trio here we did. So I love it. I love it myself. We could have done Interstellar versus Blade Runner, but we had Blade Runner versus Blade Runner 2049 at one point. So it kind of made sense. We had a pinch hit with Arrival, which was a good match anyway. So, well, all right. That's how we're going to end this show tonight, guys. Kelsey, where can they find you? Where can the folks find you?
All right, you can find me at KelseyKins90 on Twitter and Instagram. I'm also on Call to Action, so if you like Schmodown, check me out there. I'm also a general in the Action Army for Action Industry, so if you're not a general, join so you can talk with me in the generals chat. Check out the Patreon.
Big key. I like that. Jarvie, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Richard Eric with the K Jarvie on Facebook and Instagram, and you can find me here weekly with Paul Denuzzi on Class Action.
That's me. And me at Paul_Denuzio. You can find me on the aforementioned Patreon. I run the Patreon for Action Industries for Team Action. Patreon.com/Team Action. You can also likewise find me on Call to Action. On Chilled Action is a show I usually do every week, and I also am on Call Live with Kelsey. And also, of course, you can find me on my own YouTube channel called PLD Projects. I will be doing the Harrison soon. I promise. I know I keep threatening it, but I'm working some final kinks out. I keep saying that every week too, but a few more things. It's coming. It's coming. I promise. I'll make you love it, Harris, like I do. Probably possible, but I'll give it a best shot. And one last thing I will say, next week, July 19th is going to be the date. It's going to be a live episode of Class Action. We try to do these every once in a while. This time we are doing live action. It's Jarvie, myself. We're welcoming on a special guest. Current Schmo-based champion Ben Bateman is going to make an appearance on Class Action, and we'll be counting down our top 5 Tony Scott movies, which is a good, fun time. I love Tony Scott. He's a very underrated director, I feel, and that should be a lot of fun. So
I'm excited.
Ben loves him as well. I can't think of anyone I'd rather count down Tony Scott movies than Ben Bateman.
I can't wait to talk Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 because I know he's going to have it on his list. So
sure,
absolutely,
sure.
He might have it on your list too. I might have it on my list after my most recent rewatch. We'll have to find out. So live, it'll be. I'm sorry, I should tell you the time. Sunday at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, whatever time that is for Jarvie. I think it's like 7 a.m. maybe, whatever it is.
I think it might be 5 a.m. or
5 a.m. Well, he's going to do it because he's the man. He's the myth, the legend. I love him. I love you too, Kels. So everyone else, the last thing is I usually say we salute you, and I always try to do that here. But that's not what we do here. Instead, I say court is adjourned.